people are bad, right?
Yeah.
And film can be used to show them that there's a good path. But I always feel like there's also need to consider the fact that people are just complex, right? And representing
Agreed.
the complexities
Yeah.
is more of an attainable or more of an important path
Yeah.
than trying to get them to look at life a little bit differently or look at life your way.
Okay.
Which is one of the reasons why I don't like Mount Zion films.
If you're listening to this and you're not a Gen Z, you might want to turn this off.
Trigger warning.
Well, welcome to Beyond the Base podcast, and this is a podcast by Gen Zs, for Gen Zs, and anyone else who cares to listen, where we talk about business, culture, technology, and the world as a whole through young Nigerian Gen Zs. Welcome, guys. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Base podcast. I'm your host, the one and only, Base Manolu, and with me here today is...
Again, I'm not the main character, and I know this looks very odd, but I had to fight to get my spots like this. My name is Ibilapo. Yeah.
Yeah, you can clearly see that it was somebody's idea, but
I had to fight 5 people. I fought 5 people to get this setup.
I mean, kudos to Jamie Studios for making this work, because honestly, it took a lot. But yeah, welcome to this episode. It's been a while, and if you're coming from our previous episode, you know that we were pretty heated about the state of the country. All right, it was a very lengthy conversation, but today we're on a lighter note, right? And we have a special guest in our midst. He's a really good friend of ours, and he's a writer, a filmmaker, and actually a trained engineer, right?
A man of many talents.
So today we have Ife Olutayo, our guest, and he's a really brilliant mind who has done quite a number of amazing projects, especially filmmaking projects, and we're here to talk about a lot of things. I'd like to call it the dilemma of Nigerian storytelling. So Ife, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Nice.
Do you know that I'm actually glad we're talking about film today, because yesterday I was watching. So do you know this series? I think it's an Ebony Life studio series. Baby Farm.
Baby Farm.
Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't.
So I've heard of it. I saw the trailer. I've never been able to get past the 10 seconds.
But apparently it's the first Nigerian production I've watched in a very long time. And I haven't actually watched film or series in a long time, because my own form of entertainment is reading. So film not so much. And then I was watching it yesterday, and even though there were things that were very obvious in my head, I could predict some stuff. For me, the cinematography was really good. Even the storytelling as well, the way the episode followed, it was really good. And I'm not gonna lie, there were a lot of deaths in that in that Baby Farm. And I remember I was telling the person I was watching it with that this thing cannot end on a light note. I don't want it to end on a light note, because I think they killed about 4 people in the whole series. So I think it was a 5-episode series. They killed about 4 people, and when the last person died, I was like, I'm satisfied. This is good. This is good cinema.
Mortality.
This is good cinema.
I think it's beyond even mortalities. Nigerian Nollywood finally adapting or evolving to the point where we don't need happily ever after stories, because it pisses me off.
To God be the glory.
Like him. I mean, I'm not reading as much as I want to, but film, catch me. There's almost no series or movie I don't watch. And Nollywood, my God, I have reviews for days because of that. I don't know if any of you watched Oloture that year.
What
Oh
year
my
was
God,
that?
I think that was like 2018. I felt the first part, because it's in 2 parts.
Okay.
The first part movie was beautiful. It was about human trafficking, right? And it was this journalist that went undercover to try and unravel the entire investigation of how, it was prostitution actually, but sex trafficking actually, not just human trafficking. And she was able to break into the circles, right? Get contacts, get them to trust her, then paid to even let them take her to Europe, even though, man, it was really dusty. They went through.
I think I've seen the trailer of that.
You probably have, because they went through borders, passed through Liberia, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And
So I think the destination was Italy.
yeah, I think it was Italy.
It's always Italy.
So
That's the easiest way.
The easiest route.
Trans-Saharan route.
Yeah.
You go from, I think, Libya.
Yes, you
So
get through Libya.
You go from you go through from maybe Nigeria. You go through
Togo,
Senegal.
Senegal, yeah.
You go through Libya.
So you don't get to, because I know that based on the continent's
map.
connection,
My brother,
the
that
map,
map. Don't forget
the
that map.
no, I'm saying like based on the continent's connections.
Okay.
From Morocco to Spain is like a very short distance.
Yeah,
but then I know the currents at the reason why they haven't built a bridge from Morocco to Spain is because that area, that stretch of water is very, very very dangerous. Even is a current engineering problem. So I would imagine, I would think that, well, in my head, I would think that that would be the easiest route to take because it's so short. Maybe boats can go through, but then
there's also the consideration for that route was also possibly very popular.
Okay, makes sense.
It's more stringent. With Italy, there's just so much you can cover, right? And again, with refugees, with people seeking asylum or in exile, there are other players involved, right? There are ways that the country that is taking people in can, I don't want to say profit off, but
yeah, we get the.
There are some other considerations. Well, yeah, I've seen a couple of films now. The more recent one is Ayo Capitano. There's Mediterranean. There's even a Nigerian one I saw when I was younger.
Okay.
That's Saharan route. You have to walk across the desert.
Yeah, the desert option is there as well.
Sometimes they are abandoned. The guides abandon them in the desert. Yeah. Sometimes they are arrested and they are extorted. Sometimes they are tortured.
Yeah.
If you say that they don't have money, they ask you to call somebody at home.
If
you don't, you die. It's really terrible.
Funny enough, that exact scene happened in Oloture, at least the part 2. Okay. But I have beef with that movie so much because it took 2 years to produce. Imagine dropping a somewhat nice masterpiece, right? Because the first part ended for me perfectly. It was very ambiguous. She had progressed in investigation, paid her way through, and these guys are ruthless now. They even killed some of the prostitutes that were going with them because they thought one of them was a snitch. None of them was a journalist. Fortunately for her, they got all the way to the border, I think to Cotonou or so. And then when she realized that she had lost communication with her news agency, they had even cut the story short. She had to run for her life. So the way it ended was her jumping out of the bus. I mean, it's a border, so there's a huge traffic of cars going towards, and she was running in. They eventually got to her, picked her up, threw her back in the bus, ended the story there. Right? There's no happy ending. But it was a beautiful story because it taught us so much about that process. But they just had to mess it up and do a part 2. The part 2 had no bearing. Because part 1 was a beautiful movie. Part 2 comes in there 4 episodes. And we were more confused at the end of part 2 than part 1. Right? But anyways, I don't think I want to bash.
Question. So again, you said something about how the part 1 of Oloture taught us so much about the whole experience.
Yeah.
And I am very much passionate about
Nigeria.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm very, very, for those on the listening, I pointed to my Nigerian jersey, and so just so you know, I'm very passionate about Nigeria. And I'm of the opinion that if we can start correcting our value systems, we can start seeing improvements in the quality of life and the way we can improve the society that we live in. So I would want to ask you that, do you think that film, the way we tell stories and the way we structure our films or our storytelling can contribute to that?
Well, with cinema, right? Cinema is something that it's potent. I think people in Nigeria tend to ignore that because we view cinema first as entertainment.
Yeah.
Right? But even in that, there have been ways. That's why you think about a lot of Nollywood films that are didactic. They're preaching to you. They're moralistic, right?
Yeah.
So there is a studied pattern of people using film as a way to speak to particular issues or speak to particular events, and basically give their own opinions or stuff like that. So I think definitely it's very possible to do that. One thing I am always a bit unsure of, because
Yeah.
there are ways to think about this in, okay, people are bad, right?
Yeah.
And film can be used to show them that there's a good path. But I always feel like there's also need to consider the fact that people are just complex, right? And representing
Agreed.
the complexities
Yeah.
is more of an attainable or more of an important path
Yeah.
than trying to get them to look at life a little bit differently or look at life your way.
Okay.
Which is one of the reasons why I don't like Mount Zion film. Because
Oh my God! Don't.
yes, they displease me. The reason why is because the focus is to the detriment of actual quality filmmaking, or even good filmmaking, or even decent filmmaking, or even filmmaking at all. Is to quote the Bible word for word. And you can see, the goals in that. Definitely, you want people. The point of it is to kind of propagate the gospel.
The gospel, yeah.
But again, because film is an art form,
Yeah.
right? No matter how you try to express ideas, they must be couched in expressing them with the tools that cinema gives to you.
Okay.
And I don't think, I don't think a lot of Mount Zion filmmakers do consider that. So you get people watching films that are just an eyesore, but they can't critique it because they are scared that people will think that they are demons.
Yeah.
No, it's I would like call it the paradox of Christian media, right? Because I grew up watching Mount Zion films, and I don't watch much now. Not because I have beef with them anyway. I know loads of
no, I
people
have
that
beef.
on
Continue.
WhatsApp you see everybody support, and it's lovely, right? But it's people are always torn between objective criticism and support of a cause that they're devoted to.
Which is why it's scary. Because now that's the problem, right? It gets to the point where it becomes almost propagandist, right? Propagandistic, right? Where it's now like these ideas
Yeah.
because these ideas are in the film is shrouded from criticism,
Yeah.
which somehow feels like cultism.
That's the problem.
Do you get?
But again, they have their target market. Trust me, I know what you're saying. I've seen some of their movies where, even though I don't consider myself a movie expert, but I consider myself an expert consumer. No, trust me, I
What
watch.
does that mean?
It means I have enough
It means
experience
that
watching
it's
a
the
lot of
person-
things to spot,
Yeah.
even from
You see patterns.
exactly, you see
see
patterns,
patterns.
right? And
You see a
again,
lot, you
I
see
watch
patterns.
I watch variety of movies. I don't even discriminate, right? I have two sisters.
Oh, me, I
They've
discriminate like mad. I think
what's
I
the
choose
word
my
now? They've used
movies.
peer pressure to even make me not hate Korean movies, right? So at least I have a standard of objectivity in watching stuff.
Okay.
For Manzanian movies, what I've noticed is, again, because it's founded on the basis of Christianity, right? So most of their actors most times are believers that are giving roles rather than professional actors giving Christian roles. And do you see where the disparity comes? Because in acting, there's a requisite amount of emotional exposure you need to carry a character, right? And that's one thing I respect Hollywood for. They are insane when it comes to excellence. You hear actors saying that they put themselves underwater, did some insane training for months to get into a character, to feel the depth, and you see the quality in their movies. But then you can't necessarily just put somebody in a role without any of that prior experience. Another thing I'm getting to is we have very terrible talent pipelines when it comes to acting in this country. It's horrible. Most of our Nollywood movies is the same faces across 50 movies. And even the child actors, my God, many of them, it just looks like their mommy forced them to do it.
I
To
mean, those
collect
are the ones
daily
that
2K.
I think those are the ones that I think that's so.
Yeah.
Again, that's again, it's still the issue that we still have in this country where,
Whether.
for instance, in football as well, the national team, you still see the same faces
Players.
over and over again.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was reading, this is unrelated, something that happens. I've decided that I will start going back to reading newspapers. That I would because
Like
we spend physical
paper.
newspapers, because in my grandma's house there's still a newspaper guy that
Okay,
comes
that comes.
to
I
drop
haven't
newspapers
seen November
every
in a
single
long
morning.
time.
So yesterday, because I'm staying at my grandma's house right now, and I was in the dining room, and then I saw this newspaper, and it was about, the headline basically was talking about how the Nigerian Football Federation is they still have a lot of deficits, even out of all the money they've been getting. And then I decided, okay, because I'm very much interested in football, that's the space I've decided to throw myself into. And I read the article, and they were basically talking about how it's so expensive to bring all these same faces from different parts of the world to just play a match that they're average at. That they would now, they are looking for how to face a local talent, because they said that they I was looking at the numbers, and they're talking about how it cost about almost roughly £4,000 to the last game that we played with Rwanda. It cost roughly like £4,000 to fly one player from England to Rwanda. And the thing is that those players can't fly economy, because they need to be able to stretch their legs. Economy is not good for their, like, because of their profession, they can't fly economy. So it costs about 4,000, and then you now multiply that by a squad of 23. Then you do their hotel bills, and they are now focusing on, you know what? Let's look into the local leagues. Let's start looking at that, and it's a shame that we are now starting to do that when we should have done that
from the get-go,
almost 25 years ago or 30 years ago. And I think that's what's happening with film as well.
With film, and I say this in the most, because I hate saying it, and because I think that the issue with talent is also the same in other industries. I just think because of how bad those who are nepotized into it are, you tend to notice more. Some of the actors, some of the faces that you see, the new faces you see in Hollywood, are children of actors or agents or people who in some way have some connection to the business, right? In Nigeria, well, I don't want to say his name, Otimini, but someone like that came from, his sister, who was a very big name in the late
90s?
No, late 2000s, early 10s.
Oh, okay.
She's a director, and someone like that comes into the business, but I showed no effort in improving his skills.
Come on.
But
come on.
I can't talk on this because I don't really know much.
I've seen some of his performances.
I'm not going to quarrel with you about the episode.
Okay.
But I will say this, like, it's very important for you to consider yourselves. One of the reasons why Morocco was, again, to take that tangent, was successful at the 2022 World Cup was investment in local talent.
Exactly.
Right? 2011,
Japan as well.
I think their king invested so much money. The government invested so much money in their grassroots football, and again, building stadiums, building world-class training facilities. All of these things contribute towards, a goal, which is to play against the best and beat the best. Right? With Nigeria, I think that's something that we would need to do definitely in football. You if you have homegrown talent that can go bar for bar with those in Europe, playing in Europe, those playing in Asia, those playing in the Saudis. It's only good. It's only great that there is so much opens up, like even revenue wise. But again, one of the things I've come to realize as a country is that we don't like to think about long-term success. And that's the problem. In film, the idea is this: you put faces that are successful now in front of the screen. Those are the ones who get the opportunities.
Exactly.
Right now in Hollywood and in Nollywood, people are getting cast based on their Instagram followers, not that they can act. Lai is a great comedian, man, right? But there's no reason why he should be in front of a camera. It just happens.
Why do you say though? Why
I
do you
would
say
argue
that
that
though?
one, though.
Okay, all right.
Right.
I don't know what you guys have seen.
No.
But
I
at
want
the
to understand
problem, at
your
the point
POV.
of the film Tribe of Judah.
He wasn't in Tribe of Judah.
He was.
Wasn't Everybody Hates Jennifer?
He was in Tribe of Judah.
As what?
I think he was. Or did he just go for the premiere? No, was it?
I don't recall him being in Tribe
Was
of
he
Judah.
not? I don't know. At this
Yeah,
point.
I remember Anybody Hates Jennifer. I know
check.
he killed that particular role.
What?
He did.
Okay. Whatever you
go
want
on.
to say. Again, subjective.
Yeah.
But what I would say is people are getting deals that they should probably not be getting. Sabinus made a film.
Sabinus made a film?
Yeah, of a very interesting year on social media. He had done, some numbers. He was the funniest comedian in Nigeria.
Yeah, he got the NBC.
He got a film.
Yeah.
I'm right? He got a film. Like, you have other figures like that, socialites, musicians, who are cast in Nollywood films because, again, the idea is to kind of steady that bottom line. You want returns.
So they go for the safe options. They go for the popularity.
Right? And the fact of the matter is that for you to show, at least with the kind of industry that we have right now, which in a sense still kind of models what we had in the video film era, is still kind of very fragmented, right? But now you have maybe a vertical integrated company like Film One, right, where they are in every aspect of film production and distribution, and they have their own theaters, and so they have a crazy monopoly on what goes out on the screens. In all of that, right, there is still this slaving to the bottom line, slavery that they are held on. But the fact of the matter is that for Nigerian films to improve, right, in the ways that do matter, for us to be able to make films that we can, in a sense, say, oh, this is Nigerian submission to the Oscars, people need to lose money. You need to be willing to lose money.
Yeah, it's all about taking risks.
You have to build, and that's the problem. You have to build structures that can produce quality, right? The Royal Academy of the Arts was inaugurated in 2012. MMA song, Hannah, and Uduake song. That produced talent for Nollywood, right?
Yeah.
Ebony Life, in connection with the Lagos State government, it's free. You get to train a younger generation of filmmakers and people and people get access to stuff like that. My problem also is even in creating those systems, they still choose like the easy way out.
How so?
I'm not going to call these people.
Okay.
I can't call them. But because I took their course in screenwriting.
Okay.
It was not Ebony Life.
Okay.
But I took their course in screenwriting. It was an online course. And that entire course program was nonsense. At the point where I had taken like the theory part of things and we're doing the practicals, which was everybody get your app, your screenwriting app, write your screenplay, submit for evaluation. A lot of people in the group chat did not know what screenwriting app to use. They didn't even know which ones existed.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. That is a course that will give you a certificate for screenwriting. At the halfway point, nobody knows what screenwriting app they're going to use. I, the student, looked at somebody's script. She didn't know how to format, nothing. Right? People like that. And it was a mistake because I was already writing before I put an APK in the group chat.
Yeah.
And I got like 2 texts asking me questions. But I'm also meant to be learning alongside them.
Okay.
So the course program did not do anything. And those people have certificates. And if there's something that Nollywood loves, it's certificates. So that people who would walk into rooms that they're not meant to be in, or they're not qualified to be in yet, and basically they are doing the things that are coming out, right? It's problematic. So it's not even about creating those structures. It's about creating those structures for sustainability, holding them to a certain standard, right? Because in the end, they can talk, they can shout, they can complain, they can say, oh, if you don't, and I love it. My job as a film critic, people tell me, oh, if it's so easy, go and do it. I do it. So I don't know what you're talking about. Like, that is something I'm able to say. some other film critics can't. But in the sense of it, right, it still boils down to, if we don't attack the problem at its root,
Yeah.
you can't see any real progress.
So what would you? Because I'm with the way my brain works is, so long we've talked about the problem, attacking the problem. Now,
Yeah.
what
What's
would
the
you,
solution?
for you, like what would be the solution? Well, so I'm not talking about a solution that it is for the now. I'm talking about what
Long term?
what
Yeah,
foundational
sustainable.
solution would you look for, or would you engage in to look long term?
Okay, so like every other industry in Nigeria, we build sustainable living on dysfunctional systems. It's how our government has operated. It's how the film industry operates. It's how sports operates. People find it's like cancer. So like they find
Yeah, instead of treating the cells.
instead of treating like what's going on there, they just build on top of it. Right? For example, banking industry, there was a debt of cash crisis in 2023.
Yeah.
POS people emerge, and I'm not faulting that is not a viable way to live, but because so much livelihoods depend on that, it has become the norm.
Yeah.
MTN have their own now.
Yeah.
Banks are also doing that. They are selling their cash at premiums, even though they are still stuck in their ATMs, to POS people.
Yeah.
And that informal system has
Yeah, it's
become
becoming
something that is
layer.
formalized.
But
dysfunctional.
the thing is that in as at 2021, those POS people existed. The thing is that they didn't exist. So the thing,
They were
so
not at that scale.
Not,
So
you
no,
understand?
but okay,
I walk down
from
my
a commu-
streets. There are 5 banks. There are 15 POS people.
okay, so from
From a consumer basis,
point,
it's ease. I'm
Yes.
not arguing. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I'm saying. But you cannot but recognize that it is dysfunctional to buy your cash back. You're buying cash. In the end,
but then in the so
they are not. These POS people are ordinary Nigerian citizens, not trained in the banking system, who sit down and lord over money. Do you understand? Like,
Yeah,
I
I understand what you're
understand.
saying.
It's
I understand what you're
easy.
saying.
thing
It's
is-
easy, right? It's easy, and I'm not arguing against that. This morning as I was coming, I collected money from a POS
Yeah,
agent.
definitely.
okay, so
What
from my
I'm
own point of
saying
view, right?
is-
I'm okay. No, finish.
What
your
I'm
point of view.
saying, right, is that in the end, what they are doing is buying cash from a bank and reselling it to you.
Yeah.
That's it.
But then the thing is, you have to remember that that's not their like sole purpose, or at least originally. Chill.
I
Hear me
know,
out,
there's
right? Because
transfers,
behind.
it's
It's
all
not
of
even
that.
on that. It's on the financial inclusion for remote areas that
Okay.
don't have that infrastructure.
Yeah.
That was the core purpose of why
Of
like
POS.
agency banking actually started.
Yeah.
But again, like Nigeria, many things are not used for what they were meant to be used for.
And
Do you
now
get? So
livelihoods
now that's why it's
are-
become
do you
a
get, it's become
layer.
this another
It's a
layer,
layer
of
on
the
top
financial
of
district of,
that.
Nigeria.
But I mean, it's Nigeria. CBN does bring out laws to like move some of these. What they did last year was to now restrict all these guys. You at least must be registered as a business. You must at least have XYZ amount of money in. It's a necessary evil, at least at the moment. Some leaps in technology might modify the way we interact with these guys eventually. But I think before we drift off to the point, that Nollywood one, because there was something in an article you wrote at the Republic Journal. No, I love that particular phrase when you talk about how Nigerian films are sacrificing social issue engagement for cheap relatability, content and entertainment. That's one of the things that pisses me off the most, right? Because I'm on Netflix, I'm on Prime, YouTube. Oh God. YouTube,
Oh, no, YouTube
movies
is another-
piss me
it's
off
another-
because
it's
there was
another
this time John
conversation.
Boyega, you know John Boyega now.
Yeah.
I think you should know him. He
Yeah,
was
the
in
actor.
Star Wars. He was in Woman King.
Think
You
I
definitely know his face. Pacific Rim. He was in Pacific Rim.
Yeah, the
Crazy.
new one.
Okay, the new one. Yeah, right. So because he came to Nigeria, there was one Nollywood fest or so, and
Afrif.
Yeah, it was Afrif.
Last
Yeah, and they
year.
asked him, why is Hollywood not wanting to collaborate with us? And he was very diplomatic about his answer, but the short summary was, "You guys are not excellent. You're not half as good as you think you are, right? Because the movies are substandard. The stories are always half baked, right? Many of your actors overestimate themselves. So even when they go to Hollywood and to like movie bodies, right, in Europe and the West, they are not up to the standard of play. Actors don't even have range. Now, to the person you shaded before, I'm not shading him like you, but for me, I do think he has talent. I just don't think he has range. I see him play the same person in loads of movies.
Okay.
Right? And again, it's Nigeria. Social media here, we're very sensitive to social media.
Yeah.
Right? That is why many of these agencies even leverage these guys.
Yeah, it's not only
there's
here though.
Oh,
That's
it's
the funny
everywhere.
part.
yeah, it's everywhere.
Places.
It's
Yeah.
Social
everywhere.
media has become like this thing where
It's become the standard. Because there was something Will Smith said one time that really blew my mind. Because Will Smith has been a star since the 90s, right? And he said back then, being a celebrity was being anonymous. Like your anonymity was your biggest selling point. You only see me in movie premieres. You only see me on stage. You only see me at one-off events. So you are craving those few events for the tabloids, for the papers to come out, and that's how you feel my presence. Michael Jackson was dominated the world at a point where when he wanted to shoot a music video for They Don't Care About Us in Brazil, the government could not protect him. It was the kingpin of the what do you call these guys now? The drug mafia that said they had to ask him for permission that can Michael Jackson come and shoot here before we come to your country. I said, who is a fan of Michael Jackson should come. Do you know how crazy that is? All the way in Brazil, a drug mafia boss could protect you because there was that anonymity. But today, if you are not the one constantly posting online and being a content creator, apart from being an actor, apart from being a movie star or kini, you are easily forgotten. People's attention spans are so short. So I feel it's also a dilemma for these guys. And again, it boils down to money. Yeah. But it also boils down to who has the pockets to burn through for the right thing to happen.
Yeah.
Do you get?
In the end, like we said, the problem, like I said, the solution.
Yeah.
The solution for this.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot about like you said,
sacrificing
social issue engagement for
relatability.
For relatability. It's the funny thing about it is in the early 90s, right?
Yeah.
When video films blew up with seminal film Living in Bondage. Living in Bondage was a film about a get-rich-quick scheme. That story hits home because it kind of reflected the realities of the society it emerged from.
Yeah.
And this is something I say a lot. But in a sense, there was a lot of fear around money and where it was coming from. Right? It had become a situation where money rituals, you hear of them on the news. But it was something of like this idea being confirmed by somebody who had heard it and thought it would work. So it was like Ouroboros, like a snake eating its own tail. The situation is only created because there's a reaction to it.
I'm trying to follow.
Okay, let me explain what I mean. So in the 70s, there was the album, right? Towards the end of the decade, Festac had happened. There was a lot of corruption in Shagari's cabinet. Policies, insane policies, meant that Nigeria was on the downturn as the 80s came about, right? Now, by the time he was ousted from power, and Idiagbon and Buhari resumed their post, and then they were ousted, and Babangida resumed his post, SAP was going around the global south. Babangida implemented that in, I think, 85. And what that did was that it devalued the Nigerian currency.
Yeah.
Which meant that filmmakers who were making celluloid films in the 70s, like Ola Balogun, like Moses Olaya, like Huberto Gunde, could not anymore because there was no processing lab in Nigeria. So they had, right, to take their films to Europe to process and bring them back. But they couldn't afford to do that anymore. They couldn't afford to buy film stock. So they used reversal stock from NTA for a while, and when that finished, they had to turn to something. How video films emerged was there was a legion of importations of Sony VCR cameras, like cameras, Umati cameras, or was it Betamax? I think it was Betamax. But those cameras were imported for wedding videographers. They were making, wedding clips, all of that, right? Now, these empty VCRs that came with the Sony VCRs were an object of luxury, an object of wealth. Now, a lot of people would leave their villages and come to Lagos and write fraud letters for people, right? They will send them abroad, they will make some money, go back home. Now, the people who they were going back to could not see how somebody could wear a suit, go to an office, and make that much money, right? There was this confusion about where the money came from,
Okay.
right? Because there's stock markets. Aside from Ford, there's like stock market. What do you mean I put my money in, I can get like a 300%? There was no way to wrap their heads around it.
Yeah.
So they resorted to, the ideas. When a country is, and this is not to vilify anything, but when a country or a space is devolving into economic turmoil, right? One of the things that usually happens is that a lot of people turn to religion, right? It's why the first mega churches emerged in the 80s, right? It's directly, film and religion are kind of indirectly
connected. I would say they
connected.
propagated at that time.
Yeah,
Or proliferation.
the first mega church was 84.
Which is?
I can't remember the guy's name, but it was in 84.
Because
Mega church requires multiple branches. Requires
that's what I'm
it was
saying. They
in the 80s.
existed before them, but that was their boom.
They did not.
Redeem is almost 80 years old. 80 years old.
It was not a mega church.
And that's what I'm saying.
You
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, they became okay.
you don't get what I mean.
Yeah.
Redeem, as you see it now, is a mega church, right?
Yeah, of course.
But Redeem in the 80s was not. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
It was in the 80s that Oyedepo, Adeboye, that boom happened because of something I mentioned, prosperity gospel. There was this idea that like, there's this evil way of making money, and then there's this good way of making money, right? And the only way you could make money, right, was as a Christian, was to subscribe to these tenets, right? A lot of people flocked to churches because of these ideals. They were not the only ones. There were a lot of other churches, right? But the hold that Christianity and religion has on the country majorly happened in the 80s. I've read newspapers from the 70s, bro. Nigeria was
Where do you
a
find
bit
that?
secular, right?
Where do you find that? Newspapers from the 70s?
Archives.
Archives are NGV.
Not even archiving. I went to National Archives in Ibadan. So see
Okay.
newspapers as far back as 1903.
I know there's a website where they've been.
See letters
they're
as far back
constantly-
as
Yeah, I just
Nigeria.
I told you that I'm going off screen, so
Yeah.
that's why that's interesting.
So there were a couple of papers like Lagos Entertainer, which was like this weekend paper. So they didn't do like Friday, Saturday, Sunday like a daily paper. It was just a weekend. So Friday to Sunday they would cover that. So yeah, there were some images in that that I don't think will fly right now.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like you
Very
what you could
sensual.
like images that you probably censor.
Okay.
Right. The objectification of the woman of a woman's body.
Yeah.
All of those idea of placing the female body as prop existed in the 70s.
Okay.
Nigeria was a secular country, right? And then it's more complex than that.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
what I'm trying to say is this, right? By the time the 80s came about, right, there were these ideas of like money rituals, how you could get rich quick with money rituals. And it was such an idea that had wedged itself in the Nigerian consciousness that people would then do that and get caught and then confirm the bias. That's what I mean by snake eating its own
You
tail.
mean-
So they created the
the
situation
rumor
from the reaction.
Okay. But so how I'm trying to marry the film to
I'm
the
going
topic.
somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Taking
So
us on a
that
journey.
idea was something that already gripped the country. By the turn of the 90s, Nigeria was a dangerous place. People couldn't go to the theaters, which was another reason why mega churches propagated. Theaters went out of business and churches bought up those theaters and expanded, right? So people were afraid to go to the theaters. One of the reasons why Nollywood was so popular was because it was tapes.
Yeah.
You could watch them in the safety of your home. Hand robbery was at the high. The country was dangerous. Everything seemed like it was going down, right? Now, there are some video films that were made in the late 80s, but they didn't find any success. There was Ajeni Yami, made by Shola
I know
Ogunshola
that.
in 1988. It was even difficult for him to get a classification from the Censors Board. But that film existed. There was a guy, Solomon Izzy, making video film satirical clips in the East.
Okay.
And they were pretty popular. But the reason why Living in Bondage was so popular or blew up was again access, right? You have to remember the entire film is in Igbo. Right? But one of the reasons why it was so popular was the idea that you could just walk up to a store, buy, and go home and watch it. And then the story too, it focused on the perils of get rich quick money, right? This guy joins a cult. They tell him he has to sacrifice the guy, the person that is most dear to him, right? He does that. And when he tries to get out, he runs mad. He's delivered in a church. Those were very, very prevalent ideas in the minds of Nigerians in the 90s, right? This evil thing that has not been confirmed by the film we are watching, and then the idea that the church was the only way that you could get money, like at least legal money, right? So all of these ideas was what made it spread like wildfire, right? So even at that point in time, Nigerian films were speaking to Nigerian anxieties. And I think there's a disconnect now. Because you might have not liked early Nollywood films. Yeah. But one thing they did not miss an opportunity on was making sure that they were talking about real Nigerian problems.
So now, you remember there was a question I had asked earlier about how film, like I talked about the value system and how film can affect that. What you've just said is speaking directly to what I said. So now, is it now possible that instead of focusing on the anxiety and the issues, we start to focus on films that focus on bringing light to solving those issues? So for instance, let's you know how for in Hollywood, for instance, a common theme is somebody is going to New York to make it big. Someone is going to New York to. I left. Let's say I left.
When last did you watch a Hollywood film?
I haven't
watched all those Hallmark Christmas.
I haven't watched in a long time, but that's the idea I remember. That people are. That's why
the glorification of capitalism.
So exactly. So now, is it not possible? Because the reason why America, their values have spread so much around the world was majorly through their media, especially their films. So now that's why I asked you the
propaganda
question.
Them back. I understand what you mean, but like you also had that in Nigeria, like with films. For example, there was this idea of there were a lot of films made around. Like I said, like a film I told you about that, like going to Italy and you think you just make it. There was this idea of like there are films, a lot of films that explore that transnational idea. Sophia in London, by Kingsley Ogoro, which shows this character as a journey just come in a new country, right? And even though like the dynamics of that is different, there are other films that speak directly to this idea that like the West is a better place.
So that's why
go and make it big there.
That's where my head is at. Instead of now speaking to the things that, because now those ideas have now actually also informed this Japa wave where we see those places at a better opportunity, which in fact it is. It is, but it's at a detriment to us. And that's where I'm coming from. I'm more of a it's like Coke. Coke helps, but it's not good for it helps like quick dopamine, right? But it's not good for your system. Like,
which Coke are you
Coca-Cola,
Coca-Cola.
Thank you. Yeah. Like it's sweet, it's nice. It's quick. Please, we don't do drugs here.
Please, we don't do drugs.
It's sweet, it's nice, it's quick dopamine, but it destroys your system. So that's why I'm saying the whole Japa movement is it going for a better life, but the actual fabric of the foundation of this place and the structures of this place are being eroded by that movement. So now that's why I asked, how can film start to change narrative? Because remember, like in media was something Hitler used very well to push his agenda.
That film style,
Exactly. Everybody uses media, even US. Walt Disney was more or less you feel more than I do. So you know what the government used that to do.
The thing about it is this, right? You also have to remember that like the Americans, the entirety of America is founded on something, manifest destiny. They believe that God gave them the land. It's insanity. So they moved into they came to a new land, right? what is now called that entire
Stretch
North
of
America,
North America,
continent,
yeah.
right? They moved as pilgrims from England,
Yeah.
and they had this idea that
Those
God
English went everywhere.
are giving them this land. The real culprits of moving everywhere are the Portuguese, but we won't talk
And
about
Spaniards
that.
too.
And the Dutch.
No, the Europeans. Let's just
Europeans,
the Europeans.
in general.
It's this idea that like God has given them this land, and it's something that they carry into everything.
Yeah.
Even till now, the average American is ignorant. Like, because of that idea that the world revolves around them, they do not exercise any curiosity about anything that is
Outside
not
of their-
directly to their way of life, which is problematic, because then there is this narrowed vision, no empathy, no way to relate to other people's issues, right?
Yeah.
And it's problematic, right? The thing about it is this, right? The reason why the American propaganda around, the propaganda they pushed against the Soviet Union, right? Oh, they are evil. All those ideas. They spent billions of dollars in countries. Some places they implemented, regime changes sponsored by the CIA. They did so much evil shit over over the 20th century.
Yeah.
They were everywhere, including Nigeria,
Yeah.
right? Because they even came to Festac. That's the reason why their way of life is so popular, right? Is that promised freedom,
Yeah.
and their commitment to economic stability, to abundance, if you get me. The reason why it's so difficult to spin that kind of block for Nigeria is because the realities are terrible,
Yeah.
right? So people are not living mainly because of the promise of a better life. They are living to escape this one.
Yeah, I know people are living to escape this one.
Yeah.
But the reality is that you can't escape this place. As long as you have a Nigerian passport, you can't escape this place.
The goal is the goal.
No, you like
Wait,
you,
I get that. I know that there are difficulties. You could even think about Alma's trip around the 7 continents and see how.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
I
That's
think-
so painful.
and think about like how that was kind of delayed and
The experience
it was problematic because of that passport, right? I understand that, right? But living here gives you a fighting chance.
Exactly. For a lot of people, it's
for
a
a lot of
fighting
people,
chance.
it's just the
Because
chance.
they wouldn't survive
Some
better
people are
here.
living there. They spend 5 years. I have a friend who finished uni with us.
Yeah.
His side job abroad is janitorial work, right?
Yeah.
He's been doing it for a year. Nobody wants to leave the country of their birth, right? But in a place where you could literally die because you didn't give somebody money, in a place where systems that are meant to work are not working. I'm about to say something that is not a shade, but like you think about, there's so many financial payment systems coming up every day.
Yeah.
Banking the unbanked. But in the end, like, the root issues are still the root issues that they are not being tackled. So like there is a neglect of the people. I believe that for you to be a public servant, there needs to be a deep consideration for the people you govern.
Yeah.
Example, look at this Independence Bridge they closed. Poor communication.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I left my house 9:30 a.m. I go home 4:24 a.m.
Yeah.
I spent 20 hours on an 8-day work, like an 8-hour work day, right?
Yeah.
So there are some realities. It was a nasty day for me, right? And for millions of
Lagosians who were moving around.
Look at what the governor said.
They say
You should think outside the box. The discomfort, right? It's not even about, there are problems. It's that the people that are even meant to be figuring out ways, you voted some into positions to take care of these problems or figure out solutions, right? I don't even care about you.
I don't agree with the idea that the government is supposed to fix our problems.
No, the government doesn't need to fix
Do
the
you know what?
problem.
Do you know what the
understand
government
you're
is
saying.
for?
The
No. I want you to. No.
The government, they are the architects.
They are what?
They are the architects.
They are not architects. They are public servants.
No. I'm
Yeah.
talking the idea.
Let me. Can I finish? I know where you are going, and I'm going to try. I'm just because again
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it this way, right? I'm not saying that anybody should just be dependent on the government. There are people in America, or I don't know why I'm always going to America. I don't like them. But like there are people in countries around the world who have social systems or not even that structures that are basically funded by their government that make their lives easier. It doesn't mean that they're not going to work. It doesn't mean that they're not going to find solutions to their own problems. But think about someone who has personal problems and then it's also figuring out driving, traffic, thinking about gridlock, thinking about water in his estate.
Let me just contribute to
Public
that
servants
idea.
are you pay their salary. The money that they are stealing, right? Or they are mismanaging.
Yeah.
Some of it is taxpayers' money. I pay tax right now because I work in 9 to 5, right? That money is being mismanaged. That money is meant to go towards solving issues that exist on a structural level, a societal level, so that I can focus on my own personal problems. But now you have a Nigerian who has to wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. just to beat traffic, right? Maybe he meets the traffic, somebody breaks his windshield. There is no accountability system where you can track somebody that has done that. Look at Third Mainland Bridge, poorly lit. People have accidents on that bridge because of that in the night. I had a friend who had an accident. Well, the guy was sleeping at the wheel. But you get my point. Like, there are structural societal issues that exist. Cost of fuel, right? The cost of electricity, right? There's stuff that you are put there to figure out for us. Like I've said, all of us cannot just be here now with no leader, right? And just be, trying to solve these problems because we'll argue. Everybody will have different ways to do different things.
Stuff,
Okay, we are going to elect somebody that best represents our interests and have them fix these issues over a period of time. Do you think in the last 10 years that anybody that has been on that supreme seat, right, of problem solver, which is the president, has done enough for your country to then validate people saying they will stay back and try to fix their own personal problems?
Okay, so sorry guys, we're really running out
of time. And I would really love to answer that question. I'm going to make a mental note, and then in the next episode, I would talk about it. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it is the reality of every Nigeria, but I happen to see it differently. And the reason why I happen to see it differently is because I've been around people that are close to these public servants, and when they talk, and I'm not talking about the figureheads. I'm talking about the actual civil servants, the people that do the groundwork. When they talk, you get a sense of why we need smarter people in those places.
Are you talking about them or talking about the figureheads?
Not the figureheads. I'm talking about them.
Okay, so when you talk to the people at the grassroots or like
the people in the offices, the people that are supposed to do the work.
So you think there should be smarter people in those offices?
Yes, you would realize that the people that are supposed to be doing the work, we need smarter people there.
Okay.
And the smarter people are the ones leaving. That's where I'm now. We need more of these people in those places.
Okay.
So it's not the figureheads.
I would love to answer that.
Yeah. But we don't have the time.
But we don't have
the time.
And just 10 seconds. GRV wanted to revamp the civil service. Not revamp per se, but he wanted to institute particular dictates that would, in a sense, improve the lives of the people in civil service and also create a better working situation. In a sense, being the governor of the state is one of the figureheads I'm referring to. Because that did not happen, we still have what we have now. I worked in civil service. I understand what you mean. But some of them are put there by those figureheads. Some of them get those opportunities because of nepotism or because of favors or stuff like that, people that are not qualified to do anything are then put in those offices. So even if the smarter people were here, you may still face the same problems.
you definitely
because how
face a
will you
lot of
get
the
them in those
loggerheads.
places? That's what I would say about that.
Yeah, so guys, let's call it a wrap. Thank you for listening to this episode. This was quite fun. And you can follow us anywhere. Listen to this podcast on jamit.app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music.
And don't be too confused that I'm sitting on the floor. This was just a very comfortable position for me. And I needed to fight 5 people. I have to remind you, I needed to fight 5 people to be able to sit here.
What a guy.
And let us know what you think about the setup, because
he claims to not be the main character.
Just let us know what you think about the setup so that I can have a case to be able to push this for another episode. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.